The high ground has changed. For centuries, military strategy was defined by the hills, then by the mastery of the skies. Today, the ultimate high ground is the silent vacuum above us, a domain we once viewed as a sanctuary that has become the most critical yet most vulnerable front line in modern history. As we look up at the stars, we are no longer just looking at a frontier of exploration. We are looking at a theater of potential conflict that underpins every facet of our modern existence. The question is no longer whether space will be a battlefield, but whether we are prepared for the day the lights go out. Is America truly ready for an era of space warfare? Every aspect of American life, from the GPS in your pocket that guides your travels to the global banking system that manages your wealth, and the precision of our nuclear deterrent that ensures our peace, rests on a fragile web of orbital infrastructure. This network is the nervous system of modern civilization, a delicate tapestry of titanium and silicon spinning thousands of miles above our heads. We rely on these distant, silent machines for communication, navigation, and early warning. Without them, the modern world as we know it would cease to function in a matter of hours. This profound dependency has not gone unnoticed by those who seek to challenge American influence. To them, our orbital assets are not just tools of progress, but a strategic Achilles heel that can be severed with surgical precision. We begin with the most visible threat, the kinetic era. In late 2021, Russia tested its Nudol direct ascent system against the defunct Cosmos 1408 satellite, creating over 1,500 trackable pieces of debris. This test wasn't just a technical milestone, it was a warning. Kinetic destruction in space is permanent. Unlike land or sea, where the debris eventually settles, debris in orbit remains for decades, a lethal, high-speed obstacle to all who follow. China's direct ascent capabilities are similarly advanced, designed to decapitate American command and control in the opening hours of a conflict. They have demonstrated the ability to hit targets in both low Earth and geostationary orbits, placing our most vital eyes in the sky at risk of total annihilation. The Kessler syndrome, a runaway chain reaction of collisions, is no longer a theoretical fear. It is a strategic reality we must account for. Beyond ground-launched missiles, we face the rise of co-orbital threats. These are killer satellites, like Russia's Cosmos 2576, which maneuver close to American assets to sabotage, jam, or disrupt from within. Some carry robotic arms for physical interference. Others carry kinetic payloads or high-powered transmitters. This is the sword of Damocles, a constant maneuvering shadow forcing our operators into a state of perpetual vigilance. These satellites can hide in plain sight for years, appearing as benign scientific or commercial platforms until the moment they are activated. Space is no longer a distance to be crossed, but a neighborhood to be defended from those who walk among our most sensitive assets, waiting for the signal to strike. This proximity creates a level of strategic ambiguity that challenges our traditional notions of deterrence and defense. Then there are the invisible weapons. Directed energy systems, like Russia's Peresvet laser, are designed to blind our reconnaissance eyes, while high-power microwave bursts can fry a satellite's electronics without leaving a trace of physical debris. This is a war of attrition, where the goal is to degrade capability without triggering a full kinetic response. By 2025, reports indicate that China is developing structural lasers capable of physically damaging components from the ground. These systems are silent, effective, and incredibly difficult to attribute, making them the perfect tools for gray zone conflict. They allow an adversary to unplug American power without ever firing a missile, creating a state of perpetual technological degradation that can be more effective than physical destruction. We must learn to fight in a domain where our primary senses, our sensors, are under constant invisible assault. In 2024, Intelligence reports surfaced regarding a Russian program to develop a space-based nuclear-armed anti-satellite weapon. This is the ultimate area denial tool. Unlike a nuclear weapon aimed at a city, this device is designed to detonate in the vacuum of space, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse. This EMP would be indiscriminate, disabling thousands of satellites across low Earth orbit, regardless of their origin or purpose. It is a desperate, scorched Earth strategy that would render the orbital domain unusable for decades, effectively blinding the world and resetting our technological progress to a pre-digital age. It is a threat not just to American security, but to the continuity of the modern global order itself. We are faced with an adversary willing to poison the well of space to deny us its benefits, and our response must be as robust as the threat is catastrophic. How does America respond? The answer lies in resilience and active defense. We are moving away from exquisite billion-dollar targets toward tranches of hundreds of smaller satellites in low Earth orbit. This is security through numbers, a strategy managed by the Space Development Agency known as resilient by design. If you destroy 10 satellites, the other 90 keep the mesh network alive. Simultaneously, dynamic space operations give our satellites the fuel and maneuvering capability to dodge threats and actively relocate. We are no longer just watching, we are preparing to defend our interests with the same vigor we apply to our oceans and skies. The goal is to turn the vacuum into an active, maneuverable fortress, ensuring that no single strike can decapitate our capabilities. This shift represents the most significant strategic evolution in the history of the United States Space Force. Crucially, this is no longer just a government effort. The 2024 Commercial Space Integration Strategy formalizes our partnership with the private sector through the Commercial Augmentation Space Reserve, or CASR. Constellations like Starlink have proven that the surge capacity of American industry is a strategic asset. By integrating commercial innovation directly into our defense framework, we ensure that in a time of conflict, the vast resources of the American private sector can be leveraged to maintain our orbital dominance. This synergy allows us to innovate faster, launch more frequently, and adapt to emerging threats with a speed that traditional government programs could never match. Our greatest competitive advantage is the ingenuity and scale of our commercial aerospace sector. The defense of space is also a global endeavor. General Stephen Whiting and the leaders of Space Command are building what they call a pyramid of partnerships with our closest allies. From the United Kingdom and Australia to Japan and our European partners, the sharing of space situational awareness data and the synchronization of orbital defense strategies are vital. This collective security framework ensures that the rules-based order in space is upheld by a coalition of nations, making it harder for any single adversary to disrupt the commons. By standing together, we create a deterrent that extends beyond our own technology and into the shared values of the global community. Our allies are the force multipliers that will ensure the high ground remains open to all. Underlying all of this is a massive economic investment. The United States is committing over $185 billion to the full objective architecture of the Space Force through 2035. This isn't just military spending. It is the protection of a space economy that is already worth $1 trillion annually and growing. From satellite telecommunications to the emerging industry of on-orbit manufacturing, our economic future is inextricably tied to the safety of the orbital domain. When we talk about space warfare readiness, we are talking about the defense of the American standard of living and the preservation of the engines of our future growth. We are building an economic fortress in the stars, and the readiness of our military is the insurance policy that keeps that engine running. Strategic readiness also requires legal clarity. The aging 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which forbids weapons of mass destruction in orbit, is being tested by new technologies and unconventional threats. America's Artemis Accords represent a new framework for norms and behavior, aiming to establish safety zones and transparency among nations. Yet, without enforcement, these are merely words on paper. The legal battlefield is just as critical as the orbital one for maintaining a stable and peaceful domain. We must define what constitutes an act of war in space and establish the consequences for those who violate the sanctity of the commons. The development of international norms is our first line of defense against the chaos of an unregulated orbital frontier. We must lead not just with technology, but with the wisdom of the law. Finally, we look to cislunar space, the vast domain between the Earth and the Moon. As adversaries look to establish a permanent presence on the lunar surface, the gravitational high ground of the Moon becomes a strategic necessity. Ensuring security in this immense volume of space is the next great challenge for the Space Force. It is here that the balance of power for the 21st century and beyond will be defined. We must ensure that the lunar frontier remains a domain of peaceful exploration, not a new theater of conflict. This requires a new generation of sensors, propulsion systems, and strategic thinking that extends beyond our own orbit and into the deep reaches of the Earth-Moon system. The future of our security is tied to the stars, and our reach must be as vast as our ambitions. Beyond the strategy and the hardware, there is an ethical imperative. Space is the common heritage of all mankind. As we build our defenses, we must also build the foundations of a lasting peace. The technologies we develop to protect our assets must not become the tools of our own destruction. We are at a crossroads where our actions in orbit will determine the trajectory of our species for centuries to come. It is a responsibility that demands not just military readiness, but a profound moral clarity. We must be prepared to defend the high ground while never losing sight of the higher ideals that lead us to the stars in the first place. Responsibility is the twin of power. In the final analysis, this is not really a story about orbital assets or kinetic interceptors. It is a story about the fragile continuity of our species. We have built our world upon the stars, and in doing so, we have invited the wars of the earth to follow us into the heavens. The readiness of our nation depends not just on the strength of our sensors or the number of our satellites, but on the wisdom of our strategy and the clarity of our purpose in this high-stakes, silent vacuum. We must ensure that the stars remain a beacon of human progress, not a graveyard of our greatest ambitions. The challenge is immense, but the stakes are infinite. Gene Botkin with Ellen Arda. End transmission.